So my name is John Heaton, as we kind of discussed earlier. So I'll be discussing, in some part, many of the things that Chris just mentioned with regard to the problem with TCP, but we'll focus a little bit more on how Aspera, as a technology company, has gone about solving that problem, and also with regard to some of our achievements and our capabilities within the technology itself. That's the marketing slide. I'll get rid of that one. So the only thing to really note about this slide is our company has been around since 2004 around this protocol we developed called FAST. So just as Chris mentioned, you need a solution that overcomes the challenges with TCP. We went about solving an application layer protocol we call FAST. Stands for Fast, Adaptive, Secure Protocol. And it rides on top of UDP just like File Catalyst. And this protocol is in use with thousands of customers. In terms of the paid customers, more than 2,000 licensees, and we have over hundreds of thousands of deployments of our products in various places. The major markets we service are media and entertainment, but we also have customers in the federal government. Many three-letter agencies use us to move data over challenged networks. Healthcare, life sciences. In fact, in the life sciences space, one of the more interesting ones is a 1,000 Genomes project by NIH, so they move a lot of genomic data sets with our transport. I'll probably come back to that one in a moment. But basically, the commonality between all these markets is that they have large data of some form. And most people, when they're talking about file transfer, it's a PowerPoint file or some emails and some other stuff like that. But when you talk about media, oil and gas, life sciences, you're talking about 500 megabyte, gigabyte, even terabyte data sets. And the challenges with those types of data sets are vastly different. Also, when Chris mentioned small files, you may have one or two PowerPoint files, but if you're a e-discovery company trying to get thousands or hundreds of thousands of documents off of someone's computer for the discovery life cycle or process that they do, that also adds up into lots of data. So traditional TCP-based problem or transfer is ill-suited in those situations. And I think everyone inherently knows what the trends are within file transfer, the problems, the challenges that people face. If you want to visually represent what it looks like, you can see that TCP, as Chris described, has two things that affect it: latency and packet loss. The windowing size, and also it's the retransmission algorithm it has. And either one of those can affect TCP to the point where you use a very small fraction of the available bandwidth. We show a gigabit here. Our technology, I'll skip to kind of what our technology can do, can go higher than that. But if you have a gigabit pipe end to end and you're in the same facility, you have zero latency, zero packet loss, you're going to have no problems getting pretty good performance. But as you expand outside of that, so go out from New York to Los Angeles or New York to New Zealand, the latencies, the packet loss you encounter increase to the point where you're using such a small fraction of the available bandwidth that most people use sneakernet. They put it on hard drives, ship it. That's just the best way for them to do that file movement. So Aspera as a company has developed a protocol, again, FAST, and what it's designed to do is give you ideal bandwidth utilization over the wide variety of network conditions you have. So our premise is, if the bandwidth is there, you can use it fully and efficiently and do so without disrupting other network traffic. So we have that congestion avoidance built into it so that we react to not only our own transfers, but other transfers on the network. So you can have someone surfing YouTube if that's what you want to have on your network, or someone checking their email using VoIP. They can do that over the same networks, and you're still getting the full bandwidth that's available. But if the bandwidth is there, we'll make use of it. Our technology also has reliability built in, so if data gets altered or dropped in any way, we retransmit that. Same with resumability. If the transfer fails for some reason, like someone unplugs their computer, shuts it off, we're able to resume the transfer from where it last left off. We also have different ways to control the transfer. So being fast is great, but you may have policies that you want to enforce, such as SLAs with the customer. They can only use a certain amount of bandwidth. So we have different ways to change the characteristics of the protocol to meet your particular business requirements. And in the same vein, if you have integrations, being able to integrate that at a very low level API or use a tool to get information about how transfers are being done. We provide metrics, APIs, and different logging and statistics that you can use to create those policies. When we talk about security, we can actually use pretty much any protocol, but we pretty much standardized on the AES encryption algorithm, which is, it's pretty much the standard of almost all secure encryption. We use 120-bit keys. We could go higher, but most people have never pressed us to go any higher than that because AES 128 provides a good measure of speed at the processor level. How many bytes you can encrypt compared to other algorithms. I'll skip over since basically when people start thinking about moving toward a file-based workflow of some form in digital asset management, the primary thing that you need to consider is, most people say, oh, I need to move 10 gigabytes and I need to go from the US to Europe. And it's going to take hours. I think I'll just FedEx it. And that's because, again, TCP has this characteristic. We, on the other hand, since we're able to leverage the available bandwidth, if you have 10 megabits end to end, and you want to move 10 gigabytes worth of assets, either a single file or multiple files, it'll take you 140 minutes. That's a simple math equation you could do. Rate, I equals RT. If you go to 10 times the bandwidth, it takes 1/10 the time. So 140 minutes and it's now 14 minutes. A gigabit, same data, nothing else has changed, 1.4 minutes. So this is sort of the promise of your bandwidth. You make bandwidth investments, and you want to be able to make use of that bandwidth. On top of that, when we start talking about what Aspera offers from a technology perspective, one of the things that we do is when people talk about going into the cloud, that personally that's a term I dislike in general, but a lot of cloud architectures like Microsoft Azure, Amazon's AWS offering, they all have what's known as an object storage. And you guys may have played around with those, but those are basically HTTP-based storage buckets that you can put data into and take it out. But it's using HTTP, which means it's TCP-based. So it's slow over the wide area network, just as we described. So Aspera has technology solutions around moving data in and out of cloud-based storage. So one example of this is Netflix. So I don't know how many people here probably use Netflix, but I see a couple hands. But all the content that they get goes into Amazon S3. And all the content is delivered using Aspera directly from wherever the content is produced or distributed into Amazon. And we basically bypass, or they don't ship hard drives or do anything of that sort. It uses our protocol end to end to allow it to move from the source through a solution we have, and we write directly into the object storage. So they don't have to think about doing a post transfer from an EC2 instance in the Amazon case or something else. So it's just one single transfer. And we're doing this with a variety of other storage solutions, Azure, Akamai. We're working with Google, OpenStack. So when you start thinking about clouds and the potential of using all the technology offerings within cloud-based environments, this is one of the things that we've been working on heavily within the last 2 years. We mentioned adaptation and being able to play fair. So this diagram talks about the management interfaces and some of the things that we do around our protocol. But one thing to note here is that this shows sharing bandwidth equal. You have one transfer and it goes at 15 megabits. You start a second transfer, and in an ideal case, you want your UDP-based file protocol to share that bandwidth equally. So one of the hallmark characteristics of our congestion-based algorithm is that it has fairness and pluggability if you want to change it. So here we show a second transfer going at half the available bandwidth, and the other one goes down to half, so that the aggregate is still 15 megabits. You start a third transfer, but give it a higher priority. So that's the important one in some scenario. It uses a higher relative bandwidth allocation, and the other two use the remainder of that. So that's one of the capabilities around our transport. And this image is from our management console, so you see what files that are within a file transfer, the data, who sent it, et cetera. And all this information is available through APIs when we talk about the larger issue of how do you integrate this into your DAM. So actually speaking toward that, Aspera is a technology, and I'm pretty sure File Catalyst follows a similar model. We're a software-based solution, and we sell servers as a platform for integration into your application. So it all rides on top of our core protocol, FASP, as a transport. And then this transfer protocol, you can have different clients and servers based off of the type of use case. If it's a simple ingest use case, you might not need a web integration. You just get a desktop client. It could be command line based. It could be simple FTP-like browser, and you upload and download. But especially in the digital asset management space, there's a lot of need for web integrations. Not only just like, can I initiate a transfer from the web, but as Chris said, can I make it look and feel like it's part of my application? Can the user get the information that I want them to see and nothing else? Or does their experience change? So we have tools, a REST-based API and a JavaScript API that allows you to leverage our core transport and move data in and out of your application through an integration. We also offer management tools, as I mentioned earlier, and even synchronization tools. If you're familiar with Unix rsync, we have a synchronization tool, but I don't think if that really applies to this market here. So with regard to our developer network, at pretty much every level of the software stack, we provide APIs, whether it's really low-level C and C++ integrations, all the way up to higher level in JavaScript or even SOAP-based APIs for either determining what transfers are going on or initiating those transfers. We also have APIs for mobile platforms like Android and iOS. And then we also have our own products that people sometimes use just out of the box, and you may want to integrate that into your application. So we have APIs for those as well. Just to give you an idea of the types of integrations we've done, we have several in the MAM DAM space. One of the more flashy ones is Sony Media Cloud Services. So as I mentioned with Netflix, where they use the Amazon S3 backend, Sony puts all their data into a cloud provider. In this case, it's Amazon, and they need a secure solution that allows them to move data, whether or not their customer is in Bogota or right down on the lot in Hollywood. And all they want is the ability to move that data quickly. And if you've seen the CI user interface, you would never know that Aspera is on the back end doing that. They've completely streamlined it. It's all HTML5. You can change files, and all that stuff happens, seamlessly. We also have, transcoders like Telestream, Harmonic, under media asset management. I'm trying to figure out. These are a bunch of different ones. We've done integrations with Autonomy, MediaBin, MediaBeacon, North Plains, Vitaspine. I'm sure I'm missing others, but. Anyways, these are all marketing slides, so I'm not going to bore you with that. But anyways, that's the stuff that we're doing at Aspera. And again, I know questions are going to be later. Thank you.